The Dallas Stars are off to a solid start, and Joey Erickson of Locked On Stars is here to talk about that and what the keys are for the winning to continue. We've got all that and more on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here, and welcome everybody to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $500 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Dallas Stars, Joey Erickson. And Joey, you got to be encouraged by the first two games of the season for Dallas this year.
Absolutely. Off to a really nice start, picking up a win in Nashville over that new look Preds team. And then they come back home and a wonderful performance from Jake Oettinger, 33 saves against the Islanders for his 11th career shutout. And Dallas is 2-0. I will say it hasn't necessarily been Dallas Stars hockey, but 2-0, not going to complain about that.
In what ways was it not Dallas Stars hockey?
Yeah, it's been pretty, I guess, uncharacteristic, but maybe it is the first, week of the season. They're going to go through some growing pains, and maybe there's some chemistry issues up front with just some of the new line combinations with the injury to Maverick Bourque. I think that has played into some of their offense. They just haven't been very crisp. It's been a little sloppy. If you look at the Corsi percentages, right, it is not what you're accustomed to seeing from the Dallas Stars, especially at 5-on-5. They haven't been very good at exiting out of their own zone, and they haven't put together a lot of passes through neutral ice. Where they have found success, though, is stretching out the defense, and you can see that against the Islanders and Nashville. The Stars are just flying the zone, and they're throwing stretch passes up the ice, and Dallas is going to make you pay. That's the one thing they're going to be very good at this season offensively is if you have a lapse, if you break down for a second, they are going to make you pay. And we saw that in the second period against Nashville. They scored 3 times. And then in the second period against New York, when the Islanders had a couple of turnovers in their own zone, like the Stars will score. They're just too talented. But in terms of their puck possession and quality of offense, it really hasn't been there. I think it's safe to say that if you would have given the win to who deserved it more, it probably would have been the Islanders and Nashville in both of those games. But look, the Stars are deadly, and if you get good goaltending like they have in the first 2 games, he's been off to a fantastic start. They're going to be a tough team to beat. But maybe it's good as well that they're not firing on all cylinders. You probably don't want them to in October. It's about working towards that. So there's still a lot of positives though with what we've seen. And as I mentioned, 4 points in 2 games is not a bad way to start things off.
Talk to me about Jake Oettinger, because he has been spectacular through 2 games.
Yeah, I was really high on him coming into this year, and I did a segment on this sort of phenomenon over the summer with goaltenders that are young, that play a ton. And then in that 4th full season in the NHL, they seem to pop. And I looked at what you would call generational goaltenders, at least in my generation, like the Marc-Andre Fleury's of the world, the Carey Prices, even Vasilevsky. You look at those numbers, that 4th year, they just really, really established themselves. Not that Oettinger hasn't. He's obviously regarded as one of the better goaltenders, but last season he really struggled. He was up and down with injuries. And I said, I think he's going to have a huge year, and he's off to a fantastic start. He seems to be a lot better in terms of his shots that are high blocker, high glove side. We saw a large amount of goals beat him upstairs last season, which we were not accustomed to seeing. He seems to have that on his side. Also, he's living right. I think the opposition's hit like a dozen posts already in the game. He's been very fortunate. So I don't know what he did over the summer to please the hockey gods. But on top of that, he's faced some high quality looks and he's been really, really good. And yeah, I think this is just his big season to really establish himself as one of the best in the year and our best in the game. And plus it's a contract year, so it probably can't come at a better time.
Yeah, and that has to be in the back of the minds of a lot of Stars fans, especially with the big money that goaltenders are getting, and Igor Shesterkin's still waiting for more. So how does that fit in with the cap long term for the Stars?
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how it plays out. And if you're general manager Jim Nill, you're almost hoping you maybe should have signed him before the season if he continues this play. But they're not going to worry about that. Jake doesn't seem to be that type of player where he's worried about his contract right now, right? He's going to wait till after the season, and the Stars will do business then. But it certainly plays a huge factor because you're talking about players like Wyatt Johnson that need a deal after this season. Jamie Benn, which he won't be much of an issue. He's going to take a lot less than the last contract he signed. But Logan Stankoven, he's going to be due up in a couple years. Those are the guys that have to get paid probably decent, large sums of money as well. But I will say, number one net minors do not always come around. I think you just need to get them done and go from there. It's probably going to be 8 years, probably upwards, could be $8.5 million. It could be a little bit more, but you don't want to be caught in limbo, right? And we saw the mess sort of with Boston and all that. And look, Shesterkin is playing that card. I guess for the Dallas Stars' sake is they have a really good crew up front. It's not like, Shesterkin probably holds a lot more weight on that team than maybe Oettinger does in a lot of ways. But hey, they're number ones. They deserve to be paid as such. So I think the Stars just need to just give them all the money and call it quits, get it over with, right? But easier said than done in the cap world. Hopefully it continues to go up.
You mentioned the Bork injury. Matt Dumba also shaken up in that last game against the Islanders. Any updates on either of them at this point?
Yeah, still not a very clear update on Maverick Bork. We'll see if he plays tonight, which is when they play Seattle. He's skating in practice. He's participating. It's just the soreness. It's listed as a lower body injury, so maybe he'll be good to go tonight. But I think they're going to be pretty cautious once again, and we'll probably see him later on this week. Matt Dumba, which is really unfortunate because Dallas needs some bodies to chew up some minutes on the back end, and he's going to have some imaging done on Monday, so we're going to know more then. But Dallas may have to bring somebody up from the AHL, but Brendan Smith, who came over in the offseason from the Devils, will probably slot in tonight against Seattle, and then they'll go from there. But it certainly hurts because Dallas finally had some righty-lefty combinations on the back end with Miro Heiskanen and Thomas Harley. And last night against the Islanders, it was kind of what Stars fans were hoping they didn't have to see again, and that was that 5-man rotation. Of course, it was out of necessity with Dumba not returning to the game. But look, they're going to need guys to chew up some minutes. But for now, you're going to see a lot of number 4 and a lot of number 55, which I guess it's good that's happening now. It's early in the season. They're fresh, but hopefully Dumba can come back. And I said this as well. I don't know if they're going to miss Dumba for necessarily his play, but it's just the minutes he can take. And the Stars need some guys on the back end to do that. So a little early adversity is never a bad thing, I guess.
What do you think, besides Oettinger, is the biggest key for this team to take that next step? They've been contenders the last couple of years. How do you get over the hump?
Yeah, I there's probably a few factors, but I guess like the offense cannot dry up when it really matters most. And look, the offense wasn't an issue for the entire season until it was. It's one of those things where it's like all of a sudden they can't find the back of the net. Special teams has really been an Achilles heel in those big moments as well in the Western Conference Finals. In the regular season, they've been top 10 under Pete DeBoer in both seasons. They've been off to a very, very bad start now. I know it's a small sample size, but we're seeing some of the issues that we saw back in the spring. So there's something there that they need to make adjustments and make some changes to. And I think that's really what it comes down to is, can you execute in some of those big moments? Because that's sort of been the big issue. It's like the offense just dries up. And we've seen that with Pete DeBoer too in past places where he's been. It's been a trend that you saw in Vegas. You even saw in San Jose. And it's not that Pete DeBoer's had the lack of talent. I mean, good night. I mean, look at the Vegas teams he had and San Jose and now the Stars team. It's just, you got to find the back of the net. And unfortunately, that's been it. I know the defense is sort of the weakness, but really, I think more concerning is just the offense stops scoring, and you just can't win that way anymore. You can't win. You run into a hot goaltender like Skinner did, like they ran into Skinner. He was kind of bad until he wasn't, and that's the sort of way it goes. But hopefully they can get over the hump. They have the pieces, right? I mean, they have the makings of a contender, but yeah, you gotta put it all together at the right time, and hopefully this is the season.
Joey, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Absolutely. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, Locked On Stars. You can follow Locked On Stars on Twitter. My Twitter's Joey the Jet 19. You can find me on all social medias as well. But so happy hockey is back, just watching across the league. And yeah, my Stars are off to a good start. So no complaints here. I'm a happy camper.
All right, Joey, thanks so much. Always a pleasure. Today's episode is brought to you by Hims. Guys, sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously, and we always want to be ready so we can perform in the bedroom. Hims provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Hims is changing men's health care by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor visits. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personal ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.